Hello. In this week's Torah portion, Pinchas, Moses asked God to appoint his successor. His siblings Aaron and Miriam have died, and he himself is near the end of the road. And God answers, quote, "Sing aloud Joshua, son of Nun, an inspired man, and lay your hand upon him." End of quote. Moses does not show it, but he is disappointed. Why? The Midrash answers, quote, "Why did Moses make this request right after the decision was made to let the 5 daughters of Zelophehad inherit the property of their father? He thought, this is the time for me to make my own requests. If daughters inherit, it is also proper for my sons to inherit my glory." But the Holy One, blessed be he, said to him, "Your sons sat idly and were not involved with Torah study. It is more appropriate that Joshua, who served you, serve Israel." Unquote. So Moses' sons were not sufficiently meritorious. Judaism started with appointments by God and heredity rights, then slowly moved to a meritocracy. A meritocracy is when opportunities, jobs, and rewards are granted to those who have the most personal merits: intelligence, knowledge, proven ability, integrity, etc. First, it was God who picked the leaders: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Jacob's sons, Moses, Aaron, Joshua, etc. Then God told Moses to appoint 70 elders to help him, so he did not have to be involved in everything, being careful to include people from each tribe. Then the priests came. God made Aaron high priest and decreed that all his Jewish male descendants would be priests, Kohanim. It would be a hereditary position lasting forever. Then the judges came. They led Israel in times of war and adjudicated disputes in a loose confederation of 12 tribes. Judgeship was an unelected, non-hereditary, temporary position granted by consensus. This lasted 3 centuries. Then the kings came at the people's insistence. The prophet Samuel anointed Saul and David as kings, and from then on, kingship was hereditary. This lasted 4 centuries. Then the prophets came, picked by God, with no temporal power, but tremendous spiritual influence. This lasted 6 centuries. Then the 120 men of the Great Assembly came after the return. They were picked by Ezra the scribe and elected their successors by a majority vote. This lasted 2 centuries. Then the rabbis came. They were the scholars. They arose and wielded influence solely because of their merit. The Sanhedrin, council of 71 sages, decided all matters of Jewish law by majority votes and picked its successors. From then on, Judaism became purely meritocratic. The yardstick for evaluating people was study and knowledge of Torah. The Mishnah says, quote, "Rabbi Shimon said there are 3 crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty." And the Rambam adds, Aaron merited priesthood. David merited monarchy. But the crown of Torah remains for anyone who wants to be crowned with it. Unquote. Torah scholarship is not hereditary. It belongs to all of us. The Torah states, "Torah tzivalanu Moshe morasha kehilat Yaakov." Moses commanded us the Torah as an inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. The Talmud actually established a strict hierarchy in Israel for protocol purposes. At the very top is the scholar. The scholar even comes before the king. Why? The Talmud answers, quote, "A scholar takes precedence over a king of Israel, because if a scholar dies, there's no one to replace him. But if a king of Israel dies, anybody in Israel is eligible to replace him." After the king comes the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, then prophets, then ordinary priests, then Levites, then ordinary Jews, then bastards. However, the Talmud adds, but if a bastard is a scholar, he takes precedent over an ignorant high priest. Which system is better, heredity rights or meritocracy? The pros of heredity rights are that one can prepare for the job since childhood. The system promotes stability and continuity by removing uncertainty. The leadership is nonpartisan, can make quick decisions in emergencies, and establishes a clear chain of command. On the other hand, when heredity rights rule the land, bad apples will crop up and cannot be dismissed. There could be corruption, incompetence, insanity, and refusal to listen to the people. There is no accountability or liability, no checks and balances. The system creates a ruling class, an elite above the rest, and can lead to person worship. The pros of a meritocracy is that it leads to more efficiency. It is best for both society and for the meritorious individuals. Indeed, corruption, nepotism, and cronyism can quickly lead a society down the drain. It keeps at bay racism and other forms of discrimination and creates the appearance of fairness. It lifts everyone's spirits with a feeling of, I can do it if I work hard. On the other hand, who decides who has the most merit? The relevant metrics are not always available and can be incomplete or misleading. Also, the merit may be in the wrong place. The Talmud says, quote, Rabbi Akiva taught his son, Rabbi Yehoshua, my son, do not dwell in a town whose leaders are scholars, because scholars are bad administrators. One must also ask, does the most meritorious share the values of the group? Is she good at interpersonal relationships, which may be critical to the job? For example, a foreign minister needs more than knowledge of foreign affairs. Yet people without proper qualifications have frequently done much good, even though they were unknown quantities. Experts may perpetuate an inability to think outside the box. Let me take my native Egypt as an example in favor of meritocracy. Corruption and nepotism are rampant and a way of life. You may find that to get a driver's license, you have to slip the examiner a $50 bill. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that bad drivers are driving around. If you want a good job, who you are and who you know are more important than what you can do. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that the incompetent people are frequently in charge of things. This is not likely to change soon. But is a meritocracy fair? The United States Declaration of Independence begins with, we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Are all really created equal? No. Some are born smart and some dim, some handsome and some ugly, some rich and some poor, some whole and some handicapped, some lucky and some unlucky, some with a popular background and some with a background that causes them to be shunned. So some people do get a head start. Is this fair? No, life is not fair. The phrase must then mean all are born equal before the law and must be given equal opportunities without any discrimination. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov gave the best possible encouragement to those who were born different. He said, the day that you were born is the day God decided that the world could not continue without you. If life hands you lemons, make lemonade. Now let us ask, how strict should a meritocracy be? Should a head start or a preference be given to minorities, women, the disadvantaged, thus discriminating against the more meritorious? Would this do them or society a favor? Is this the best way to make up for past discrimination? Many people answer, if discrimination is bad, eliminate it. Don't perpetuate it. This 2021 case illustrates the point. I'm quoting. President Biden's Department of Agriculture steers COVID-19 relief benefits to socially disadvantaged farmers, those of Black, Native American or Alaskan Native, Asian American or Pacific Islander, or Hispanic or Latino ethnicity. End of quote. White farmers say the program's allocation by race is unconstitutional and that the program could run out of funds before their applications are even considered. Federal Judge William Griesbach in Wisconsin agreed, finding that the government lacked a compelling interest for racial classifications, that its use wasn't narrowly tailored, and that the farmers are likely to succeed on the merits of their claim that the Department of Agriculture's use of race-based criteria violates their rights to equal protection under the law. On the one hand, some people argue that merit is more than what the numbers show. Those from a disadvantaged backgrounds have to travel farther to be where they are, so they should be given preference over those who are ahead of them, but did not have to travel much. Indeed, the Mishnah says, the reward is according to the effort. Others argue that diversity is always desirable, but is diversity per se a valid goal when it clashes with merit, especially when it comes to groups with no history of being persecuted? Also, it is inescapable that giving preference to minorities discriminates against non-minorities and can even create a doubt that minority professionals are qualified. In conclusion, we can certainly say that in these United States, most people agree that the meritocracy is better, both for the individual and for the society as a whole, and is certainly more fair than birthright privileges. Shabbat Shalom.